Hey, sounds like the cat's out of the bag. You have found AllegiantWebWise, where for you web agencies, we discuss the business of being a web business.
Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of the Allegiant WebWise podcast. And we're great to have you back here again. And we're going to talk today about something that we all have to deal with at some point in our careers. But at the moment, it's really, really relevant, and that's email deliverability. And you maybe have heard on the grapevine that both Google and Yahoo are putting out messages to other service users to say that they're clamping down on spam and they're going to really require everything to be all buttoned up for email deliverability. So if you're like us and you've had some clients that have come along in an absolute panic going, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Then this is the episode for you. So we're going to talk you through what we've done with our clients and best practices and how you can actually move forward and help your clients. So guys, that's enough talking for me to get us started. Who wants to go first and tell us, Marty boy, you can tell us a little bit more about your experience and what's been going on with your clients and this whole panic situation.
Yeah, sure, Jill. And the first thing that I came to this, it was literally that a client going, my email's not going, it's not sending. What have you done? Which is usually, if you think about it for us as website designers, graphic designers, etc., what we're not is email specialists, and generally we haven't done anything. But they do expect us to be able to help, and there are some things that we can do that will help all our clients. Just before that, I had 2 or 3 clients now, and what I've realized is that there's a very fundamental lack of understanding about how email works. And what's helped them is just comparing it with traditional paper-based mail. So if you just allow me for 2 minutes, I just want to talk about traditional mail. If you want to go and deliver a letter, you've got 2 choices. You can either go and stick it through the letterbox yourself, or you use a service provider. And in the UK, that's generally Royal Mail. Or you could decide, okay, well, I don't want to use Royal Mail, I want to use DHL or, any one of those other providers. And so you give your mail to them and they go to a delivery hub. And from the delivery hub, they do some checks on your email on your mail, before they decide what to do. For example, they'll check what size is it, because that's going to determine how they'll deliver it. They'll perhaps check the weight. They also may do some security checks. Does your mail stink of marzipan and is it very sticky, which could mean that there's a bomb inside it. So they do these sorts of things. And then they decide, yep, it's okay. And by the way, you've paid the relevant amount. We will send it to you. But they still don't send it to the person that you want to deliver it to. They send it to another delivery hub, the same service provider, the other part of the country, where you're trying to post your post to. And they then decide, okay, I'm now going to deliver it. They look and see, well, is this tracked mail or is it just ordinary mail? And if it's tracked mail, when they deliver it, they want a signature. If it's important, they'll also look for some authentication. Could I see your passport, something like that, to prove that you are the person who's supposed to have this mail. So all of that happens, and we don't tend to think about it. And actually, that's exactly what's happening with email. People tend to think, oh yeah, I push a button and that's it. All those things are going on. Your email goes to a delivery hub, first of all, and then it goes to a different delivery hub. It gets checked, to make sure it's okay. It hasn't got any
Marzipan
in it. Yeah, marzipan in it. Exactly so. They check, have you actually paid for this service? And then at some point they're going to deliver it. And what's happening is those checks are becoming much stronger because the number of people who are trying to send emails that you don't want is increasing rapidly. And so, they have to make the checks harder. So just as a kind of analogy with our standard physical world.
Can I just pause you there, Martin? So everybody listening and watching, I want you just to snip that recording out and send that to your clients, because that was brilliant. Carry on.
Thank you very much. Well, at that point, I'll hand over to Mike then. I could say a lot more, but Mike.
Well, I was just thinking about, and Jules just mentioned marzipan, and now I'm worried that our colleague is making bombs in his spare time. So it's a bit worrying, Martin.
This is going to get our podcast flagged, you know.
It is. We're gonna be in trouble with this one.
I know about this because I used to have to do part of the checking of mail back in the day.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So now at least we've got some context.
It's a legitimate reason.
It was a mail checker.
Your Honor.
Is that a MAIL checker or MALE checker?
That's
Anyway.
my job. Moving on.
Yes, moving on. Let's talk about the technical side. Let's talk about the actual situation that you're going to be faced with from your clients when they come to you. And in fact, I had this about 4 weeks ago with one of my clients who came to me and said that their email, which was provided by Google Workspace, was not making it into their clients' inboxes. So just taking the edict from Google aside a second, this is and can be an issue for anybody. And I think when this happens, it's very alarming for people, and it's very alarming for us if you don't know that it's happening. You could be sending emails to people and believing, and if that's, believing that that message has made it through. If that's your primary way in which you communicate with your clients, and those emails aren't making it through, and they're not passing the tests, the technical tests, then you need to find out what's happening, and you have to go down this rabbit hole, and then you'll become an expert like the three of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think the best way to start this is, if you have any doubt, one of the websites that I've found, which I think is really, really great, is called mail, MAIL, -tester, TESTER.com. So if you go to that website, it will give you an email address to send an email to. So you'll compose an email, send it to that address, and then come back to the website and ask it to check the score. So for example, just before we started this, here's one I made earlier. I sent an email, and my email for my domain got 8 out of 10. And I was sitting there thinking, well, why has it only got 8 out of 10? Well, let's just think about some of the things that it's going to ask. Firstly, it checks the message. It checks to see if it's an HTML message or a text message, the source of the message. It sees whether you are blocked, you've been blocked by other providers, and if you're in a block list. Now, if you're in a block list, those block lists, of which there are quite a few people that are spammers and send emails, those get shared between the internet service providers. So you might get into a block list on a internet service provider, let's say like BT. And not even realize it. So you might pass all of the other things, but you might be in a block list. So at that point, you have to go to BT themselves and say, can this domain be removed from a block list in order for that email to make it through to a client? But again, that might not be the case, but 9 times out of 10, if you've done all of the rest of the things I'm about to go through, then that's one thing that you must consider.
Before you go on, Mike, one of the things, so I've gone through this process a number of times over the years with various clients, and some of the things that happen are, if you're using low quality hosting and using the email service on the low quality hosting, what can happen is there are blocks of IPs that are assigned, and if somebody else in your block of IP is doing something dodgy, sending emails out, then that whole block will get blacklisted. And if you happen to be doing nothing wrong, but you're in that block, then you get lumped with them. So
really good point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important to have good quality hosting or email provider, which is why I don't actually provide email with hosting anymore, because I don't think it's the best way forward. And we can talk about that more. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Well,
no, that's a
while
really
Jill's
good
just interrupted you, Mike. Sorry, I'll take the
Is everybody
opportunity
going to interrupt me?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah.
How very dare you?
We're just building up the anticipation, because it's the only bit that people want to listen to is your bit. But just to say before, because Mike is about to go through, things that you can do with your domain-based email. Just quickly off what the back of Jill said, the other thing that people don't realize is there's lots of different types of email. So there's a domain-based email, it comes from at your domain. There's the email that's like an address at gmail.com or at hotmail.com or whatever. There's the email that your website sends out if somebody, puts a request in or sign up for something, and they're going to get an email back going, yeah, you're signed up. That's coming from a different place. There's email marketing, where you may use a third-party service. That's coming from a different place. So there are just 4 different types of email that are attributed to you. You're sending them out one way or another, and they're all things you need to look at. But the most important one of those, I would suggest, is domain-based email, which is exactly what Mike's going to tell us about.
Is he now? Oh, is he going to get interrupted again?
Mike, the floor is yours.
All right, I'm not precious. Anyway,
I'm not going to interrupt you again, Mike.
Oh, thank you. So within when you're sending an email, when you compose an email and you're doing it, let's just say you got your domain-based email, and let's say that you're using Google in order to be the sender of the source of your email. What you'll need to do is you'll need to first ensure that you have a number of records that have been added to your DNS. So your DNS zone that is related to your domain, which has which tells all of the web servers in the world where your website is, but more importantly, it'll also tell you what your email provider is. So you have what's called an MX record on your DNS, and then you have your A record to signify where your website is, which is an IP address. And then within your DNS zone, within this library, it's called a DNS library, you will have some records that help authenticate you, to help you go through the passport control of the internet service provider, so that they'll place this email in the inbox of your recipient. So these are,
Mike.
What's that? Sorry?
What are they called, Mike?
What do you mean? What are they called?
Well, tell us what they are.
Oh, I'm going to do it now.
Yes.
Interrupting again. It's an SPF record, a DKIM signature, and it needs to pass a DMARC test. So the SPF record is known as a sender policy framework record. DKIM signature is, again, it is another very, very long piece of code. And then you need to pass the DMARC test as well. Now, if you go to mailtester.com and you put your email in and you're failing any of these, then you need to go and either ask us at Allegiant Web to help you, because we are very happy to help anybody that's got some issues and some problems. Or you can do a little bit of Googling and find what you need to add to your DNS. It is a record that you need to add to your DNS. Now, if you are with Office 365, like an Exchange on an Exchange server, or you're using Google, which are the 2 primary email hosts that people use, because as Jill quite rightly said, when websites are created, you create your website separate to hosting, you have your email separate, and some people have their DNS and domain separate as well. So you keep all 3 separate, because obviously with email and hosting, if you have on them both on the same server and you want to change to another hosting company, then you're going to have to go through this whole potentially go through this painful thing again, where you might move DNS and it gets a real mess. So that's why you keep things separate. So these 3 records, very important, but there are some other things that you may not realize that will bring down your score on Mail Tester. If you've put images in them, they're supposed to have an alt attribute on them. You know, your content must be safe. If you're sending out any emails that are, so as Martin was talking about earlier, where you're perhaps sending out a newsletter, you need to make sure that you have a list unsubscribe header in it if you're sending what's called a mass email. So that enables the user to easily unsubscribe from your list. And a lot of people miss that. And then what happens is that those emails end up in spam. Be careful with your signatures as well, because we all get a bit carried away with the signature and we'd like to put links in it, and you can do a review here, and here's my links to my social media there. You will get marked down if any of those links don't work. So, as we said at the outset, think about where you're going to be sending these emails to in terms of your recipients and your source, and make sure that those 3 records, these are the main things, the 3 records, the DMARC, the DKIM, and the SPF record, all exist in your DNS zone.
It's really good. And that's a great explanation. I think that the other thing that's quite useful to know, and I only just learned about that tool you're talking about recently, Mike, but I've used MX Toolbox for a number of years, which is also a useful tool to do that. And there are a number of tools out there. Google have their own one as well, so you can look that up and find that. And in terms of your SPF, so if you're using Google Workspace as the email client, then the SPF is always the same, which is really very easy to do, which is quite nice, as is their MX records. So and mostly you can generate your DKIM within your account as well. And the DMARC record, you can Google as well for how to set that out and how to use that policy. The DMARC is actually something that's been around for a long time, but it's not been so important as it is now. And so, you know, I've just not, sometimes I've left it off, sometimes I don't, but now it's so important, and it's really important that you actually pay attention to that and where the emails are going and what's in them. So
isn't it funny how long email is one of the longest digital toolboxes that we've had since we all started communicating with each other on the internet, and it's taken this long for anybody to stand up and say, excuse me, enough's enough. This is what needs to happen from now on. And I do wonder sometimes whether that's because of the amount of server farms that there are and how much spam there is in the wild. So I think this is a great move. So you can explain that to your clients if they come to you and say, oh, why have we got to do this? This is a really great thing. And the sooner that we get this sorted, then the more reliable email becomes. And nobody will ever be able to say to you, I didn't see that email, which always used to be something that somebody would say to you, wouldn't they? So I didn't get that email. Well, it didn't go. I didn't get a response. I didn't get a bounce back. So nowadays, when somebody says I didn't see that email, I always think, well, okay, it could have ended up in the spam. So this could be that being consigned to history, which would be great, wouldn't it?
It would. There's 3 things I'd like to very quickly say, because I know we're near the end. One is what's happening here is if you haven't got these things sorted out, then you've got a greater chance of your email not being delivered. So it's not they'll be delivered to spam and people will go, oh, check your spam. Oh yeah, it's in there. They just didn't get it. And the thing is, you don't know they didn't get it because you sent it. It's the same, again, going back to physical mail. You post a letter to someone, you have no idea whether they receive it or not, unless you both know and expect that it's going to be coming. So one of the other things I'm saying to my clients is, you may get yourself completely sorted out. That's brilliant. But if you get a situation where, a client is going, well, hang on, you didn't respond, your client may most likely not have done all of this. So just be aware of that. It's our client's opportunity to make their clients aware that this also needs doing. So that's one thing, because I've had
And to get a referral to you.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there
To
is.
sort it now.
Yeah, because the other two things to say are, we build websites. One of the most important things, of course, is getting people to your website. We provide SEO services. You get people to your website, but then it's how do you convert them into customers? And still, to this day, the highest converting tool is email. Okay, above social media, above all the other things. That's the thing. So that's when people are building email lists and using, your email service provider. So it is a very fundamental tool. The last thing I just want to say is I've got clients who are still using @gmail.com, @live.com as their primary business address. So again, as I keep saying, please don't do this. It's fine for your personal email, but all the things that Mike's outlined there, you can't do that on Gmail because it's not your domain. That belongs to Google. Well, when I say Gmail, I mean @gmail.com as an address ending. So please make sure you're using your domain as your email address, and then make sure that you've got your email service provider, whether that's Google, whether that's your website host, and Jill's already explained why you shouldn't do that. But whatever you're using, first step, use a domain as your email address. Don't use @gmail.com, @hotmail.com, etc. for your business.
Brilliant. Great, wise last words from Martin. Hopefully not last ever words, but last from this podcast.
That's the marzipan, aren't we?
Something we know that you don't.
You have to send him some Battenberg.
Mike, do you have anything to wrap up for us?
No, I think the moral of the story is that it is important to separate your email from your hosting. Even if you're on Google or Office 365, you still need to ensure these records exist. Don't think that because you're on there that automatically gives you a pass and everything's going to be okay. You're still in charge of your domain name zone. So it's very important that you've got all of these records up to date. You can always check when somebody sends you an email, you can actually look at the email source and view the header, and you can see in that header it'll say SPF equals pass, and you'll also see the DMARC and the DKIM in there as well. So if you're interested, view the source of the email, you can see this, and that's going to help you understand what we've been talking about today a little bit more.
Of course, if you've received it, it's worked.
Exactly. But sometimes, what you'll sometimes get is it might not say SPF pass, it might say SPF neutral. Okay. And that means that the ISP is still allowed it through. So you are looking, so you can go back to somebody, you can do that, but go through, as Jill said, Mail Tester, MX Toolbox, use these tools, they're there. And if you need any help, come and hit us up at Allegiant Web.
Yeah, I have one last thought that I do. We've talked a lot about whether you don't know if this is working or not. I actually have a little what would you call it? A widget in my email client. I use Google Workspace as my email client, and you can add widgets in there that you can see. They put a little open eye when somebody opens the email, and that I have found really useful. So if you have an email client that you're used to, see if you can find a widget that will give you some kind of feedback as to whether the email's been opened, so that if you see that it's been opened and the client's saying, no, I've never opened that, I've never received your email, you can tell whether that's really a little porky pie or not. So that's my only final tip for that. Thank you all for joining us for this very special email episode, which is very relevant at the moment. Get out there, offer your services to your clients, make sure that their emails are being delivered, and make yourself a hero to them. Thank you very much. Till next time.
See you guys.
Cheers, bye.
Hey guys, before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss another episode. Please leave us a like or a review. It truly makes a difference when you leave reviews. And head over to AllegiantWeb.com/podcast, where you'll find a full transcript of the show, some key points, and quite a few other goodies for you. Let's build this thing together and really make a difference. All right, catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.